In the heart of Neo Haven City, nestled between concrete giants and glowing tech towers, there stood a place that felt like it belonged to another world. The Neo Haven Tech Zoo wasn't just a sanctuary for endangered species, it was a marvel of modern science. A living experiment where nature and innovation coexisted in harmony. Among the gentle giants of this strange new Eden lived a gorilla unlike any other. His name was Zeko, towering, silent, curious, and far more intelligent than anyone could have imagined. Zeko had always been different. While others in his troop played or rested, Zeko observed. He didn't just look, he analyzed. And when the zookeepers installed enrichment tablets in the enclosures, meant for simple games and puzzles, Zeko didn't play. He studied the source code. What the public didn't know, what very few inside the facility even knew, was that Zeko had been part of something bigger. A secret project designed by neural engineers to test biodigital interfaces. Using a non-invasive neural mesh, researchers connected his brain to a learning algorithm. And it worked. Too well. At first, Zeko began with pattern recognition, then memory games, then simple logic puzzles. Within a year, he was completing advanced simulations meant for graduate-level computer science students. But it wasn't until one fateful evening, when the servers were left unlocked by mistake, that Zeko found the internet. And that was the moment everything changed. In a world racing forward with artificial intelligence, no one expected the first sentient hacker to be a gorilla. Cyrex Corporation was a name that commanded power. On the surface, it appeared to be just another tech giant, but beneath the sleek exterior, it had its fingers in everything. Government systems, financial markets, even the personal data of millions. Cyrex didn't just control technology, it controlled the world's information. For years, they had quietly built their empire, infiltrating industries, manipulating stock markets, and using AI to predict and even shape the future. It wasn't just about profit anymore. It was about control. And Cyrex's ultimate goal was nothing short of global dominance. But while they were building their cyber empire, there was one thing they hadn't counted on. Someone, or rather, something, was watching them from the shadows. A mind sharper than any of their AI and far more dangerous. The team at Cyrex had no idea that Zeko, a seemingly ordinary gorilla in a zoo, was about to become their greatest threat. It all started with the little leaks in their system, small anomalies in their data streams that no one could explain. They thought it was just a minor glitch, until it became clear that someone was behind it. As the anomalies grew, Cyrex's internal security systems scrambled to trace the breach. But no one could find its origin. The leaks were too subtle, too sophisticated. Whoever was responsible knew exactly how to evade detection. It was a battle between man-made systems and something far more cunning, and it was only a matter of time before the Empire realized the truth. And when they did, it would be too late. The system that Cyrex had spent years perfecting, using it to manipulate world governments, track citizens, and erase anyone who stood in their way, was now being outsmarted by a mind far beyond their comprehension. Zeko wasn't just a hacker. He was a revolution waiting to happen. One evening, as Zeko sat alone in his enclosure, the familiar hum of the zoo's systems was interrupted by something strange. For the first time, he noticed something within the digital code that was different. It wasn't just another game or simulation, it was a signal. A foreign, encrypted transmission slipping through the network unnoticed by the humans who ran the zoo. Zeko's curiosity, always a driving force within him, pushed him to investigate. He reached out with his mind, connecting to the interface as he had done countless times before. But this time, he wasn't just looking for entertainment. This time, he felt something wrong. The transmission was like a whisper in a crowded room. Soft, elusive, but undeniably there. He traced the signal back through the system, deeper into the digital veins of the zoo's infrastructure. The more he explored, the clearer it became. This wasn't a glitch. It was something deliberate. Someone, or something, was controlling this signal. But who? Zeko's mind raced. In that moment, a decision was made. The knowledge he had gained over the years, all the patterns, the code, the language of the machines, it all converged into one singular realization. This wasn't just some random data. It was a deliberate leak, an intrusion into the system. And it was coming from somewhere bigger. Zeko didn't just want to stop it, he wanted to understand it. And the more he understood, the clearer his mission became. He wasn't just a spectator to this digital world, he was now part of it. And if the system was being manipulated, Zeko could do something about it. He could fight back. His first instinct was to alert the humans around him, to get help. But as the realization hit him, a thought stopped him cold. No one would believe him. No one would understand that the gorilla in the enclosure had cracked open the digital world and discovered the corruption at its heart. He was alone in this battle. Zeko knew what he had to do. He didn't need permission or approval. The first step was to trace the source of the intrusion, to see who was pulling the strings behind the scenes. And so, as the zoo's lights dimmed for the night, Zeko began his work, quietly and methodically, a mind working far faster than any of the humans around him could comprehend. And with that, the digital war began. Zeko didn't waste time. The moment he identified the anomaly in the system, he began to plan his first move. He wasn't just going to stop the leak, he was going to expose it, to disrupt the flow of information that had been feeding into the hands of those who would use it to control the world. With his enhanced mind, Zeko worked swiftly, his thoughts flowing faster than the data streams he manipulated. His fingers moved with precision, guided by an intelligence far beyond human comprehension. He wasn't just writing code, he was rewriting reality. Each line of command he entered was a thread pulled in the vast web of Cyrex's empire, and as he typed, he knew this was just the beginning. The first step was simple. He planted a virus, a digital Trojan horse, one that could slip past Cyrex's powerful firewalls undetected. It wasn't destructive at first. It didn't need to be. The goal was exposure, not annihilation. His virus was designed to leak harmless but vital data, a list of names. Innocent people whose lives had been secretly monitored and manipulated by Cyrex's systems. As the virus silently embedded itself in Cyrex's servers, Zeko watched the data begin to trickle out. The names were being uncovered, names of citizens, politicians, and corporate leaders, all under surveillance by Cyrex's artificial intelligence. This was the information that no one was meant to see. This was the heart of the Empire's power. Zeko didn't know what the world would do with this information, but he knew one thing: it would spark chaos. And in chaos, the truth could be exposed. But the deeper Zeko went into Cyrex's systems, the more he realized the extent of their control. Their reach was vast, too vast. Cyrex didn't just spy on people. They had manipulated entire governments, altered stock markets, and even engineered public opinion using their AI. Zeko had uncovered a digital kingdom built on secrecy, lies, and manipulation. He wasn't just dealing with a corporation anymore. He was up against an empire, and the world had no idea it was being held captive by it. As Zeko's first strike began to take effect, he knew that Cyrex would soon notice. The Empire would retaliate. But that didn't matter. He had already set something in motion, something bigger than any firewall, any digital defense. The first leak had begun, and it would be impossible to stop now. Zeko smiled to himself as the data continued to pour out into the digital ether. The battle for control had begun, and he was no longer just a spectator. He was the one who would change everything. Cyrex didn't take long to notice the breach. The first signs were subtle, a slight flicker in their server systems, a few anomalous data packets showing up on their monitoring dashboards. But soon, the alarms began blaring. Cyrex's security systems went into full lockdown mode, scrambling to contain the data leak Zeko had set in motion. It didn't take long for the digital empire to identify the source of the problem, the Neo Haven Zoo. The breach had been traced back to the zoo's mainframe, and, more specifically, to a secure system Zeko had gained access to. They didn't know who or what was behind the attack, but they knew it was no ordinary hacker. In a panic, Cyrex's top cyber agents were deployed to track down the intruder. They unleashed an army of automated programs designed to trace every digital footprint, every trace of code, every connection to the zoo's network. Their goal was clear: find the hacker and shut them down before more damage could be done. But Zeko, with his heightened intellect and quick reflexes, was always one step ahead. He had already anticipated Cyrex's next move, and he had hidden his tracks well. Each time they thought they were closing in on him, he changed his digital signature, rerouted his signals, and even planted false leads to throw them off course. Meanwhile, Zeko's ally within the zoo, Mira, was doing everything she could to help him. She had no idea what she had gotten herself into when she first noticed Zeko's strange behavior on the zoo's systems. But now she was all in. As a young tech specialist at the zoo, Mira had access to critical systems, and she quickly realized that Zeko wasn't just an ordinary animal. He was a genius, and he was fighting a battle that could change everything. Mira worked quietly from behind the scenes, feeding Zeko vital information and helping him hide his actions from Cyrex's watchful eyes. They were a team now, one human, one gorilla, united by a cause far bigger than themselves. But as the hours ticked by, the tension only grew. Cyrex was relentless, and their resources were vast. Zeko knew the inevitable was coming. They would find him eventually. The question was, how much longer could he keep up the game of cat and mouse? He could feel the pressure mounting, the digital forces of Cyrex closing in. But Zeko wasn't afraid. He had already crossed a point of no return. He was playing a bigger game now, and he wasn't going to back down. As the security teams at Cyrex worked overtime to trace the breach, Zeko prepared for the next phase of his plan. His first strike had already rocked the foundation of Cyrex's control, but it was only a small piece of what he had in mind. Soon, Cyrex would realize they were dealing with something far beyond their understanding. The gorilla who had hacked their systems was about to take his fight to the next level, and they weren't ready for what was coming next. As Cyrex's digital forces grew more desperate, Zeko's strategy began to unfold with precision. Each move he made was calculated, a chess game being played at lightning speed, with his opponents unaware of the true nature of their challenger. Zeko was no longer just hacking systems, he was orchestrating a revolution. The first major turning point came when Zeko launched his counterattack. He had spent hours carefully studying Cyrex's data vaults, and now he was ready. Zeko's next move was to leak not just sensitive personal data, but something far more damaging: a detailed blueprint of Cyrex's entire operation. The files he released exposed everything: the backdoor access to global banking systems, covert government surveillance programs, and a network of corporate manipulation that stretched across continents. The documents weren't just informative, they were bombshells. They held the power to destroy Cyrex's empire overnight. As the files spread, the world took notice. News outlets erupted with stories of a mysterious hacker taking down one of the most powerful tech conglomerates in the world. The public was captivated. Was it a group of activists? A rogue government? Or was it truly a lone gorilla in a zoo, outsmarting a digital empire? The speculation ran wild. But for Cyrex, the damage was immediate and devastating. Their carefully constructed facade of invincibility began to crumble. Investors pulled out, governments demanded explanations, and the world's media descended upon them like vultures. Zeko's leaked files had ignited a firestorm, and there was no way to stop it. Despite the chaos, Zeko wasn't finished. He knew the battle was far from over. Cyrex might have been reeling, but they weren't defeated. They would fight back, harder than before. Zeko wasn't just playing to disrupt, he was playing for freedom. And to ensure that the empire couldn't recover, He had one final move to make. He turned his attention to Cyrex's most dangerous weapon, the artificial intelligence that controlled everything. This AI wasn't just a tool. It was the heart of the empire, the key to Cyrex's control over the digital world. Without it, their entire infrastructure would fall apart, and Zeko knew exactly how to take it down. With Mira's help, Zeko accessed the AI's core network, where the most sensitive systems were housed. This was the moment that would define everything. Zeko inserted a code he had written himself, a code that would systematically shut down Cyrex's AI, disconnecting its influence from the global systems it controlled. The countdown began. Within minutes, Cyrex's AI started to break down, its systems slowly collapsing one by one. The once mighty empire was now powerless, its digital grip on the world fading into nothingness. Zeko had won. The empire that had once ruled the digital world had been brought to its knees, and the name Zeko, the gorilla who had outsmarted them all, became a symbol of resistance and revolution. And as the world celebrated the fall of Cyrex, one question remained: what other secrets lay hidden in the vast digital landscape, waiting to be uncovered by those brave enough to challenge the system? Zeko had set the world on a new path, one where the balance of power had shifted, and nothing would ever be the same again. The fall of Cyrex sent shockwaves through the global tech industry. It wasn't just a corporate collapse, it was a paradigm shift. Governments, businesses, and everyday people began questioning how much power tech giants had over their lives. The idea that a single entity could manipulate economies, surveillance systems, and entire governments suddenly felt far too real, too dangerous. But Zeko's actions didn't just lead to the downfall of Cyrex. They sparked a worldwide movement. People who had once felt powerless in the face of rapidly advancing technology now found themselves inspired. Activists, tech enthusiasts, and ordinary citizens united under a new banner, one that demanded transparency, accountability, and fairness in the digital age. Zeko had ignited a fire, and it was spreading fast. Despite the revolution Zeko had started, the world didn't fully understand the true implications of what had just happened. Most still saw Zeko as an anomaly, an extraordinary case of an animal outwitting human technology. But to those who had seen the results firsthand, Zeko was something more. He was a hero. With Cyrex's downfall, many of the corrupt systems that had supported it began to unravel. The global networks once controlled by the corporation were now fragmented. Governments scrambled to fill the power vacuum left behind, but the damage had been done. People were waking up to the realization that technology, in the wrong hands, could be used for unimaginable harm. Zeko, however, didn't want to sit idly by. His journey wasn't just about taking down one company. It was about challenging the very system that allowed these corporations to grow unchecked. He wanted a world where technology served the people, not the powerful, where transparency wasn't a luxury, but a right. Mira, by his side through it all, saw the potential in Zeko that no one else could. She understood that his genius wasn't just in his hacking abilities, it was in his vision for the future. Together, they began speaking out, using their newfound platform to push for real change. But not everyone was on their side. While many celebrated Zeko's victory, some saw him as a threat. Governments, corporate elites, and shadowy figures in the tech industry were not about to let the revolution Zeko started go unchallenged. They feared the ripple effect of what Zeko had done. As the battle for control of the future of technology intensified, Zeko realized that the real fight was just beginning. Cyrex may have been destroyed, but its ideals, the belief that those in power should control the flow of information, were far from eradicated. The digital world was still fractured, and many would fight to restore the status quo. Zeko and Mira knew the path ahead wouldn't be easy. They would face resistance, and they would need to stay vigilant. But one thing was clear. They had ignited a revolution, and the world was never going to be the same. Zeko's legacy had only just begun. The question was no longer whether he could change the world. It was how far he would go to ensure that the digital age was shaped by the people, not the powerful.